Hey everyone, welcome to the video. My name is Keso, and in this video I want to talk about how I became a software developer without having a computer science degree or without going to a coding bootcamp. So I will share with you how and when I started coding, and also I will share with you some tips for if you want to become a software developer yourself as well. So let's get into it. Okay, so I don't have a computer science degree, but I actually have a master's degree in organizational sciences. So how did I get started coding? In high school, I had my first encounter with coding because on the computers there was a program installed called Macromedia Flash. So it turns out that if you clicked around and you found a window where you could type stuff, you could actually have your weird drawings do things when you click on them. Now I know this is a programming language called ActionScript, which has some similarities to JavaScript. But back then I didn't know anything about it, but I had written my first lines of code. And then I think about 2 years later, for my high school computers course, we had to build a website in HTML and CSS. So back then I didn't think much about it, but when I think about it now, I think we just built a website using a table. So the header would be a row, and then you would have two columns, one for navigation and then one for the body, so the contents of your website, which is pretty weird, but yeah. And I also remember copy pasting in some JavaScript and some PHP to make some stuff move around the cursor of my mouse and to make a contact form work on the website. And then after high school, during my bachelor's, I actually built a website for my father using HTML and CSS, but this time I made it a little bit better looking. And then the last part, before I became a professional software developer, is that when during my master's degree I had to do research, I had to perform quantitative data analysis, and for that research I wrote some scripts that would clean up and then analyze the data automatically. Okay, so at this point I finished my research, I finished my degree, and I was actually unsure of what to do for a career until I found an old classmate who was enrolled in an IT traineeship. So it turns out there are actually companies who offer an IT traineeship to people who did not study computer sciences but who have some affinity towards IT. At this point, my experience with coding was a tiny little bit of ActionScript, then 2 websites with HTML and CSS, and then just some data analysis, and that was it. But I do remember that I enjoyed coding, that I enjoyed the problem solving and the puzzling, and that I found it a fun thing to do. So I decided to apply. After applying, I had to do some tests and some interviews, but then they offered me the job. So at this point, I knew very little code, but I was officially a professional. So at that point, I was just basically getting paid to learn how to become a software developer, because when starting the traineeship, the first month was a general IT course. I don't remember everything of this first month, but I do remember we had to learn the basics of C#, like the basics of coding, for loops, if-else statements, etc., etc. And then we had to go through the general development process of gathering requirements, then building something and testing something and deploying something. So we went through the whole process within a month. Then after that month followed a 2-month period of specialization. So this was assigned to you by the company, and they basically assigned you a specialization based on what you were good at and what the company needed to sell to their clients. So they assigned me with the specialization COBOL. So they gave me this big fat COBOL book from the 90s, and I started reading it and learning COBOL. After a couple weeks of studying from the book, I got a bit bored by COBOL and the book from the 90s, so I picked up a different book and I started learning Java for the first time. I don't remember the name of the book, but it was using the BlueJ IDE. And then a couple weeks later, I got my assignment at a bank to work as a COBOL developer. And the way this traineeship worked was that they provide you with a IT course and a specialization, and after that they will assign you, or they will give you an assignment somewhere, and you are supposed to work for them there for 2 years, and after those 2 years you were free to go, or the company would hire you where you've been working. About a year and a half in working as a COBOL developer for that bank, for my assignment, I decided that I didn't envision my career in IT like this, like a COBOL developer working on the mainframe, working on applications that were literally older than I was. So I decided to pick up Java again. This time I used the OCA book, the Oracle Certified Associate, for Java 8. And I also did plan to take the exam, but in the end I didn't. And basically I learned Java from there. At the end of my 2-year assignment as a COBOL developer, my manager actually wanted to keep me on as a COBOL developer and not have me switch to be a Java developer. So I had to switch companies. I found an opportunity somewhere else as a Java developer. They basically hired me with no real experience except for what I've learned from the OCA book. And yeah, they gave me a shot, and I'm still a Java developer now at this day. So here are my 3 takeaways from my journey so far. So the first one is anyone can learn how to code. For some it may be easier and it may come more natural, and others may need to work harder on it, but I believe that anyone can learn how to code. That doesn't mean it is or it should be easy. You need to put in the hours and you need to put in the effort to practice and get better. Then number 2. So 2 is obviously you don't need a comp sci degree to work as a software developer. Now I'm not in the comp sci is a waste camp. I actually do regret that I didn't study computer sciences when I could, but during my studies I learned other things and other skills, and I think some of them do carry over to my job as a software developer. So my advice for people who are not studying computer sciences, who are self-taught, is actually the same as people who are studying computer sciences, is that build a portfolio. Go out and actually do things, work on side projects and upload them to your GitHub. I think that's a really valuable resource next to or in place of your computer science degree. And if you feel you are missing some knowledge without a computer science degree, note that there are so many free resources available. On YouTube or on other websites you can find all these computer science courses. Go out and make use of them. And my third tip is when learning a new programming language, first, obviously, focus on the syntax and learn the rules of the language, but then don't fall into tutorial hell where you repeat tutorials and follow along and give yourself like a fake sense of progress. I think after you master the basics, you should go build a side project or a real project or work on something as fast as you can. So for me, I learned COBOL and Java both from books, but then afterwards I quickly started working on a real job, so I had to build things in the real world and solve real problems with code. So I think that's very, very important if you want to learn how to code. Learn the syntax, then start doing something real. Then you will encounter real world problems and you have to come up with real world solutions, which is a very valuable experience. So that was it for this video. I hope you got something out of it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!